Thank you, Matthew. All I can say is obviously they miss me at UBS. Well, thank you. I am really glad to be here today. And I'm Joanne Rohde, and I'm the CEO and founder of Axial Exchange. Now, a few years ago, when I was COO at Red Hat, I became sick, very sick. I went from doctor to doctor and eventually had to leave work in search of an answer. And every time I went, I was starting over, telling the same story. They had no access to the information. And I swore that when I got well, I would make it my mission to do something about it. And that's how Axial was born. Why did it take 10 doctors to diagnose me? Let's face it, healthcare communication is broken. And specifically, it's broken at the handoffs between different providers, and that's called transition of care. And doctors themselves said that this is the riskiest part of the healthcare experience. It's also a major cost driver in healthcare. So there are 150 million ER visits every year, and 80% of those visits lead to aftercare. Yet only 5% of the time are the docs that provide aftercare have the information they need to know what went on in the emergency situation. But Axial has a solution, and it's here, it's in production, its benefits are huge, and I'm going to show it to you. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to reimagine a better experience. And we did that with our cornerstone client, Wake Med. So Wake Med is a very busy hospital with thousands of patients. They arrive by ambulance, they come by cab, and thousands are discharged and for follow-on care from the area physicians. So I'd like to illustrate Axial alerts in action. And I'm going to introduce you to Abby Adams. And what you're going to see here is fake name, real data. She's a 6-year-old girl who has a high fever, neck pain, and a worried mom who thinks she has meningitis, and she's called 911. The county paramedic arrives and enters the information into the ambulance systems, and Axial conveys that real time to the hospital and at the same time to Abby's pediatrician. And on the smartphone, the pediatrician gets an alert. Now, typically, pediatricians don't even know their patients were in the ED until the patients show up at their practice days later. But let's see how easy this is to use. All he has to do is click through the link. And now he's logged on, and he can see an overview of the entire encounter. And he can see that Abby's been admitted to the hospital from the ED visit. So let's take a look at the ED part of the visit. Okay, this is simple on purpose. The diagnosis, the disposition, and the meds are all there, and that's just what the docs wanted to know and nothing else. Now let's see what happened when she got admitted to inpatient. As you can see, there's more information, but it's still very simple. But one of the things Dr. Patterson sees is that images were taken, and he can click right through. And he clicks on the head scan and takes a look. Now, what you don't see is that these were 3 completely different systems with different logons, different information data streams. All he's got is what he needs. So what Axial does is takes this, and many of you may recognize this as a chart, or what comes outside of a chart, and we scan for what's important, and we turn it into this. There's no training on unwieldy systems, there's no multiple logins, there's no Citrix clients, there's no multi-pages fax. We worked with physicians to remove the complexity and just show them what matters. So we've redesigned the whole process of transitioning patients, but what did that mean for Wake Med? And it meant a lot, I'll show you. There's $3 million in expected savings from eliminating chart chasing, mailing, faxing. And through Axial and Wake Med, area physicians became more productive, and they in turn rewarded Wake Med with new referrals. And most dramatically, after Axial was rolled out, 95% of the doctors had the information they needed in a timely fashion to treat the patients. So that's a big change from the 5% that we started with. So we are going into market in the transition of care market. And that market is growing as a result of meaningful use at about 24% per year. And that's because In the next phase of meaningful use, doctors and hospitals will need to share clinical information electronically. They only have to do a very minor part of that in the first phase. So how do we go to market? Well, first of all, we sell to hospitals, and the hospitals provide that to the doctors. We connect the hospital then with a local EMS agency, and then we lever their network, and then we repeat the model in new geographies. Under the hood, Axial looks more like a consumer web startup than an EHR vendor. We built it with open source components, and we can transform and store even the most antique information and from antique systems in a modern format so we can do cool things with it. It's device independent. You don't need Citrix clients. We don't care what browser you use. And it's elastic, so you can scale on demand. But most importantly, it's supposed to be built for applications. And a lot of people say that, so I thought we should really demonstrate what we mean here. So I'm going to show you Axial reports real quick. And what you're going to see here is, this is Pop Health. It's an open source reporting tool sponsored from the Office of the National Coordinator. And we got this running with the same data that you saw for Wake Med that powers Axial alerts in less than 2 weeks. So what you're looking at here is a meaningful use report, but the reporting possibilities are virtually limitless. And that's because of the way we store our data. We have a fabulous team. We have track records not just in healthcare, but in software, and as Matthew reminded me, financial services. Matt Maddox and I, Matt's here today, helped grow Red Hat to 500 million, and Mark Ragusa is an expert in data standards, and a partner of mine from UBS, John Casey, has overseen the mission-critical software operations. So, in summary, we've got a great team, we've got paying customers, we've got a product in production, we've got a very strong pipeline of business, and a strong lead investor from our seed round in Canaan Partners. Our goal in the next 2 years is to implement the hub and spoke strategy again across 6 key geographies, which will mean about 50 more hospitals. And we'll use this position to launch a low-cost channel sales program and bring Axial alert reports to market. So we're asking for $5 million. Now, Canaan will lead the round, so we're actually looking for one other partner with strategic connections in the hospital and the payer space to join this team. And I thank you very much for your time, and it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.